Now Pedersen to blast all that hit. Provo diving save hard as he flashes across. Briere sets up Carl, side of the net, deflected, score! Briere moving in, stops, cuts to the middle, still has it, shot! Score! Here's Hughes giving it across. Oh, what a save! Save by Hart! He's an angle! Short-handed mid! He scores! Up top, cruising is Provorov. He scores! Ivan Provorov!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Flyered Up Podcast. I am your host, as always, Amadeo Gracia. Chris Mayer is going to join us in a couple of minutes. He's kind of rolled over with school right now, so he'll join in a little bit. We are always live streaming right now on TPL, TTP Sports, and Flyers Fan Mania 93 on YouTube. We have a special guest with us today, my good friend of mine and host of the Sports Talk with Bros YouTube channel, Hunter Brody. Hunter, thanks for joining us today, and just how you doing in general. You pumped up for Flyers hockey?
Yeah, that intro got me going a little bit. I'm sitting over here thinking about tomorrow night, 5:30. Weird start time, but I think I'll be ready for it.
Ooh, it's just weird right now because we're just one day away from so many days in a row with NHL action. It gets my blood boiling. Like, I'm just super pumped. Flyers, Penguins, Battle of Pennsylvania for the first two games of the season. Ooh, nothing better than that. Just nothing better.
I agree completely. Yeah, this morning I actually woke up, had my cup of coffee. Now I'm on cup number 4, and I was listening to the TK mic'd up during practice. Did you see those clips?
I did not see those clips.
Ooh, you got to get out there. You know how TK can be. I always thought it was funny with the mic'd up guys because actually when I was playing, we went to France. When was that? We went to the French Alps when we were, what was it, like 2 years ago, and I was mic'd up. So you know you're mic'd up, so you're going to be a little bit louder. You're going to try and be a little bit funnier. So when I'm seeing TK go around, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, he's trying to throw something out there knowing he's got the mic on.
I mean, just seeing Travis Konechny just going out there chirping kind of reminds me of what Brad Marchand does on a daily basis. Not on the fact to where he starts licking people, but I just think overall, I think it's just a fun, enjoyable time. So just getting into this Flyers season in general, the Flyers had their orange versus white scrimmage on Sunday, and it was a fun time just seeing the Flyers on the ice. You got to see the Wells Fargo Center just to set up how it's decked out without the fans this year. It's going to be a weird time, definitely. We got a little bit used to that with the Sixers this year, just because right now it's just weird without fans right now. It's going to be like that for a while. But Hunter, I know you didn't really get to watch the majority of the scrimmage on Sunday, but if you got a little bit of snippets here and there, like, what were your thoughts on that scrimmage?
Oh, yeah, I did my research. I didn't, because, football playoffs, it kind of distracted me. As much as I love the Flyers, look, I love my hockey. You're giving me a little football NFL playoffs, so I'll probably flip away from the scrimmage. But I did get the cliff notes, if you will. And Kevin Hayes, that line, I'm really intrigued by that line. The only thing to counter that is, it's not as if there was a top line on the other side to really defend them to that level, but I'm really intrigued by what that Hayes line can do.
Yeah, there were like a little nitbits here that really intrigued me, especially that Hayes line with Drew and Farabee. One line that really impressed me was Patrick, JVR, and Voracek. They were flying throughout the entire ice. And Patrick, for not playing for basically over a season and a half at this point, he was flying out there. He looked really good. And I think being paired on a third line with Voracek and JVR, that's going to be something good. I think that's going to help Patrick out a lot. And remember with JVR playing last year on third lines with Scott Wallen and Michael Raffel? Maybe this is a third line that can help JVR out on the offensive side too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm actually really intrigued with Nolan Patrick as well. I'm normally one of those guys where you got to prove it to me. I'm not just going to get sucked in and say, oh, look, Nolan Patrick's great from after all of these reports are coming out. But there is something to be said about what I've seen, and, it's not just hype. There is more to it than just guys being optimistic about Nolan Patrick. He's actually going out there and performing and doing well in practice, and there's a lot more involved than just, hey, maybe Nolan Patrick can come out and be a better version of himself. So from that mentality, yeah, I think that can add a lot, and I thought this team last year, I don't think they have that piece that they were missing offensively in a goal scorer, but there's no doubt if Oscar Lindblom can go back to what he was after battling his crazy, cancer stuff. And with Nolan Patrick coming back from the migraines, if they just add depth, it's not so much elite scoring that they're missing, because they are still missing that. It's just the overall depth. I'll ask you this, because I'm a little bit concerned from this aspect. Last year, it was everyone could get points, everyone could score. Adding those two guys, it's just two more guys that can have maybe 15 goals. They don't have that 30-goal scorer. Is that going to be enough? Does that make you feel better about this team moving forward, where they just add more 15-goal guys and not so much that top dog?
I think right now in the stages that they are with this team, I think right now it's good. I feel like, actually, here's the schmuck Christopher Mayer right now. Welcome, Chris, to the Florida podcast. How you doing?
Just talking some puck.
Yeah, so to get back on that topic, Hunter, just like with adding Lindblom and Patrick into the lineup, I feel like right now, yes, they definitely don't have that elite scorer talent yet. Who knows? Maybe there's someone that's in the depths that can develop into that. Maybe they make a move here. Maybe it's trade deadline. Maybe it's another season or two down the road. But it's just right now, I think they're good where they're at. They have so much depth in this lineup. Look at that center core. You got Hayes, Couturier, Patrick, and Lawton. That is major depth. And you have JVR and Voracek on your third line. That just screams depth. And
yeah.
So we were just basically talking about just how we view the Flyers lines right now and like what they look like into the season. So, Chris, let's get your thoughts on what the scrimmage was in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I personally saw I feel like for the most part I was kind of stuck watching a lot of the NHL guys that were ready. I mean, I was like glued to Nolan Patrick the whole time. I kind of forgot some guys were playing. But honestly, overall, I know I talked with you before, Amadeo, about it too. I think most of the lines were fine. I think a lot of them you'll most likely see at the start of the season. I kind of think for the deep pairs, it's going to be weird because we don't necessarily who would have thought that Provorov would have started with Braun? You know what I mean? Like, that's just not something we would have seen. So I think overall, I think most of the lines are probably set. I'm curious to see what they have for today's practice, because it's at 11:30, and once they started and they have the lines, and that might be what you see tomorrow. I feel like most of the lines that they've continued with throughout camp. I know that G. Hayes Farabee line, that's been a line for I think like 3 or 4 days of camp plus the scrimmage. So I think for the most part, you're most likely going to see most of those lines together. I love. I mean, I know Ed, you just hinted on it too with Voracek and JVR with Patrick. That's unbelievable. You have two veteran guys down there with a young center coming off of an injured season. So I feel like overall, I think it's pretty solid for most of the lines. And again, as you said, I think the whole lineup just screams depth.
And I want to ask Chris something, because I asked you before he hopped on. My big fear is they don't have that goal scorer. I know that's a common theme, and I don't want to be like everybody else. Oh, they need the goal scorer. But you add Lindblom, you add Patrick. That's more depth. But they're not really that pure goal scorer. So would that be enough? Does that fix the hole that you had last season?
I think it does, because I mean last year they didn't have Patrick and Lindblom for majority of it, and they had 5 guys that had 20 or more goals. So I think for the most part, I think it does. I think honestly, most of it, I think everybody just kind of looks at it and says, well, they don't have that guy. You know what I mean? They don't have that main piece that's like, wow, like they don't have that Alex Ovechkin, wow kind of player if they're looked at as a Stanley Cup contender. So I think for the most part, I personally don't think they need a, high-end goal scorer if they have a bunch of guys that can pitch in and get around, similar points. As I said before, I mean, they had guys last year, like everybody knocked Hayes last year coming into the season, and he puts up 23 goals for them shorthanded. So it's like, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like overall, I don't think they need a actual true goal scorer. And I think most of the depth is going to help them. And I think in a shortened season, with the amount of depth they have and some of the young guys that are pushing to get on the roster now, I think that could really help them later on with that taxi squad and things like that.
And Hunter, I want to get your thoughts on this. The blue line right now, you lose Matt Niskanen in the offseason, really unexpected retirement right there. It's a big hole to fill in, just for how much he helped Ivan Provorov just bounce back from that one poor season that he had. And you add Eric Gustafsson, definitely not a replacement. He's a guy that can move the puck. He can chip it on the power play, quarterback it. I just want to get your thoughts on what you think this blue line is going to shape up right now without Matt Niskanen.
Yeah, this is definitely my concern. You mentioned Justin Braun and Provorov. I don't like Justin Braun. It really makes me cringe to think of a second and third round pick going to San Jose for this old veteran defenseman. Look, he has a role. I'm not knocking it. His role is that third pairing, in my opinion, where he's just steady. He's got a good stick, makes a good outlet pass. That's how I made my money back in my prime, so I get it. But if he's on like a top pairing, that concerns me. Not that I think that's going to be it forever, whatever the case may be. But yeah, losing Niskanen was definitely brutal, and I think they went from a great decor to a good decor. I don't think they're bad. I don't think that they're gonna have like insane holes. They're still going to be able to hold their own, especially with Carter Hart probably going to make some big time saves to make it not even look as bad. But they definitely took a step back.
Yeah, and just also going on the Carter Hart, there's one comment right here from our viewers, and it comes. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name. It's very, it looks very confused. So, do you think Carter Hart will have a great season? So, Hunter, I want to throw that to you right there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if he's gonna keep growing, and you saw his quote, I got everybody all juiced up about how he wants to be the greatest and all. Of course I do. I think he's got the right mindset, and you can just see with his play, he has the it factor. You know, when you watch these goalies, when they have it, you know, and it's like, wow, this kid is definitely special. So I would only imagine that he takes the next step. Here's something, though, that could possibly happen. Are we really undervaluing Matt Niskanen, and will we see maybe a step back because of Matt Niskanen not being there? I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying we got to look at everything. Maybe Matt Niskanen was such a big loss where if Provorov is going to be Niskanen, maybe he's not at that level yet, and maybe you do see Carter Hart struggle a bit because of that loss. Once again, I don't think that'll happen, but I can't rule it out.
Yeah, and Chris, I want to get your thoughts on that too. So what do you think about Carter Hart this year?
I mean, I'm not worried. I mean, I think for the most part, I think it's kind of similar to a situation that Boston's in too. I mean, obviously they lose Krug and Chara, and it's two veteran defensemen, and it's like, oh well, they're Boston's D is so weak. Well, like they have rest back there, so I'm not necessarily like 100% completely worried about them. And I'm kind of in the same boat with the Flyers because it's like, yes, they lost Niskanen, they added more of an offensive defenseman, as you said, in Gustafsson, and I think honestly, I feel like they have a plan that Sanheim and Myers will take a jump. I think we kind of saw that in Myers' contract with the way it's broken down, excuse me. And honestly, I think for the most part, I'm not worried about Hart. I'm not anymore. I never really was. And I think for the most part, I think he's going to be a rock back there. I'm not really worried about Hart at all. And I say the same thing about Elliott too. I think Elliott's a great backup, but I think they're really going to complement each other.
Yeah, I love Moose back there, just being the backup for Carter Hart. And Elliott was one of the more underrated players last year. He stepped in. Remember that one time when Carter Hart was injured for so many stretch of games, and he won a bunch of games for us?
Right around the All-Star break.
Yeah. Moose is a good veteran guy there to help mentor a young goaltender. And one thing that I want to get into, too, is that certain players on this team, I guess, players that you think should take the next step. Maybe you look at guys like a Phil Myers, a Travis Sanheim. Maybe Travis Konechny takes an even bigger jump than he was last year. Maybe even Ivan Provorov, you can say that. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So, Chris, like, who do you think on this roster right now is probably the most likely or the more important guy to take the next step?
I mean, I think the most obvious is probably Patrick, right? I mean, I'd probably say Patrick and then Lindblom. I'm most, honestly, I feel like for the most part, I'm kind of just looking as like not like a collective group thing, but I feel like, for the most part, they have to, I think, I'm trying to think of a way to like explain this. I think for the most part, they have to work together like team-wise, where like if they have guys contributing, then it's got to be like consistent. Like I feel like for the most part, they're not going to have like I feel like it's going to be similar to last year. They had a lot of guys like contribute at the same time, but I think for the most part, it's going to be like a collective group thing. But I'm looking for some veterans to play better, to be honest. I think JVR is going to have a better season. I hope, I think Jake was very good. And I think AV's going to challenge them. I know they talked about it in the quotes and things like that he said. And I think overall, I think AV's going to challenge the veterans just as much as we're hoping for these young guys to come up and play good too.
And Hunter, I want to throw that question to you. Who do you think is the guy that can either take the next step or most likely to improve this season?
Yeah, originally I was going to go with JVR. I think that, you brought him in here to be that veteran goal scorer, and you brought him in here to be that guy that can totally help you out. And then at points, he was, healthy scratched, I believe. That Alain Vigneault wasn't even thrilled with his play. So I think that he really needs to take the next step. And then I'll even throw Joel Farabee in there. I like what he brings to the table, but in terms of improvement, he's got the skill set to do it. I want to see a significant jump out of him. It's a shame. I thought Morgan Frost would be more in the mix at this point, and I'm still very high on him. And I can see why he's not, because you mentioned all the depth in there. It's like almost a good thing that he's not, because it just shows you how many players you really have. I was sort of expecting maybe him to take that leap, but I understand why. It's not like I'm knocking him. So I'll go with JVR and Joel Farabee as my two, but you could pick a lot of guys. I think Nolan Patrick and Lindblom are obviously two as well.
Yeah, and there's one question right now from our comment section. This is from Evan Curtis. So he's been thinking about this the entire offseason, and he needs an answer from us. So he thinks that Gostisbehere looked great in the playoffs. And what do you guys think about him now that he's had his hip surgery? So right now, I know a lot of people have so many mixed opinions about Gostisbehere. So, Hunter, I want to throw that question to you right now. Like, what are your thoughts on Gostisbehere going into the season? I know he really hasn't been participating in practices just because there's like something undisclosed that they can't talk about. So I just want to get your thoughts on Ghost going into this season.
Yeah, I gave him a lot of opportunities, and like I'd be willing to part ways with him. I know it seems like that's not the direction they're going to go in at this point. You know, that report came out that him and Elaine Vigneault kind of started out fresh and had a meeting and discussed things. So I'm not going to write him off completely, but I'm not really optimistic on it. I just thought that there were so many opportunities for him to go out there and make a mark, and I just thought he was so explosive and so dynamic that rookie year that we thought, like, wow, look at what we found from a offensive defenseman standpoint, and it was almost as if he was so good that he set the bar so high and he'll never get back there. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a complete bum for the rest of his career, but he did struggle through a lot of injuries. I think that's definitely paying a toll on him. And he just seems like one of those players for me where it's not a knock on who he can be, but he might just need a fresh start. You see guys all around the league get traded and go somewhere else, and then they play well, and it could be the pressure of living up to those expectations or whatever. I'm just not optimistic on him, and we talk about some of these younger guys in Sanheim and Myers and things like that. You might have that role already solidified with some of these other players where that offensive defenseman style, you pick up Gustafsson. Is that role already filled is my question. So I'm not so high on him personally.
And Chris, I want to throw that question to you as well.
Yeah, I know he is. I know Chris is stoked for some Ghost.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I personally think they should use Ghost. I mean, if they have him, use him. Because I look at it like this. Like, if you're going to move him, he really doesn't have trade value because obviously Hunter, as you said, he's been injured and he just hasn't been playing and he hasn't gotten to that feel that he was before. I think if you put him in a situation where he can play, he's healthy. From the small amount we saw him in the playoffs, and I believe the one of the last games he played was the round robin game against Tampa, and he looked fantastic in that game. I personally would want them to use him first pair. He was playing first pair with Provorov. He did it before a couple seasons ago. It's not like Provorov and them don't talk, don't say stuff to the coaches like, oh, like who would you rather want to play with? And kind of Hunter to go, I wanted to say this too, to go off your thought with Braun. Provorov started with Braun last year, the first 5-6 games, and they kind of switched it up. And that wasn't a knock at what you said, just throwing it out there.
For sure.
And then the thing with Ghost too is that he played with Ghost before in the 17-18 season. That was Ghost's 65-point year. They could do that again. I think the only way that you want to move him, if you want to get rid of him, he has to play because you have to boost his value, or you could still use him. So I look at it like this: like if he's going to play, he needs to get minutes, and he needs to, like, it's not like, if he makes a bad play, he can't be scratched. I've said this to you so many times. Like, he needs to play, and I personally think that the only way that he's going to be able to get back into that form is if he plays, because he needs confidence. And the only way you get confidence is if you're in the lineup. And if you make a bad play, you're not taken out. So I look at it like this: like if he can play and he's healthy, then they use him. They have to try to find a way to incorporate him into the lineup. I know he was taking first power play unit reps. I believe it was Saturday or Friday, whatever day they worked on the power play at camp. And then obviously he's been out since. So we don't really know what happened with him. It's could be COVID related, could be injury related, whatever. And then I believe it was just him and Allison were the other two injuries for most of camp. But I think for the most part, I personally think they should use him. And if they can, try to find a way to incorporate him in the top four, I think they should do it.
Yeah, here's one concern I have with that, though, and I'm not downplaying what you're saying. It's just so hard to go from healthy scratch to number one D pairing, and then I think about what happens when Provorov and Ghost are out there against. Like, think about the defensive mindset with Niskanen and Provorov when you're going up against Pasternak line, Bergeron line, and now you have Ghost out there with the other team's top pair or the top forward pairing. That would be my concern. But I understand your logic behind it. It's like, let the kid have confidence, let him play. He'll play with your best defenseman, so maybe they can utilize, that skill set, and he'll feel more comfortable out there, and he doesn't have to worry about getting scratched if he messed up. Like, I totally understand the logic. My concern would be, what happens what if he makes 3 brutal mistakes against a pasta line? It's like, damn, this is just not working. I don't know if you can make the jump of healthy scratch to first line D pairing. Like, I do think that that's a huge jump. So I'm cool with using him. I'm not anti using Ghost. I wouldn't mind if he's on the second line, third line, the 5th or 6th man or whatever. I just think that's a really extreme jump because the knock on him is defense, right? And if you're good enough offensively, you can totally be out there and you'll live with the bad defense. But sometimes if you want to use Provorov against the other guy's top pairings offensively, would that be a good match?
That is the true number one. And he's kind of already had that jump too, is what I mean. Like last year, he doesn't play for so long, and then he comes in, he's the quarterback of the second unit power play. So you kind of see like the confidence they have in him. Where
because offensively,
offensively. I mean, why wouldn't you use him? He's one of your top weapons back there.
Yeah, definitely right there. And Hunter, I want to get your thoughts on like who do you think that should be that guy to step up with Provorov on the first pair? And do you think it should be a guy like a Sanheim? Should it be a guy like a Phil Myers? Do you think they put the veteran up there and Justin Braun? I know you have many opinions on that, but I want to get your thoughts right there.
Yeah, it's probably going to be, I'm trying to think, maybe like, it's crazy to think Myers, right? Like, think about this. This kid's story is insane, right? Undrafted, and here he is. He's going to get thrown on the top line with Provorov. But I do think that might be your best bet if you go with something like Provorov and Myers, and then you can have something like Sanheim and Gustafsson, and then your bottom pairing could be maybe a Ghost and a Braun. And it's, you talk about Ghost confidence. Is that I don't even know if that's the best pairing for someone like Ghost, because I don't think Braun is the strongest, but that might be where he gets thrown in just by default. Too. But yeah, I think that might be your strongest. Well, how about Robert Hay? Did you just say that? The audio cut off. Yeah, it might. See, if you ask me the best, what is your strongest 6? That last line might be Haig and Braun, and then Ghost is the healthy scratch. But I do think he has value. Talk about a struggling power play last year. Is it beneficial to get Ghost in there to rock the top of the power play? But here's the counter. Gustafsson, you brought him in here for a reason. He's an offensive guy. Did he just take over Ghost's role, and he's the guy on the top of the power play? So if you ask me the best 6, I just laid it out with Provorov, Meyer, Sanheim, Gustafsson, Hagen, and Braun, and I do think that that's probably your strongest 6.
Yeah, and Chris, just getting your opinions on that too. Like, what do you think is the best option for the Flyers on that top pairing?
I was leaning more towards Sanheim, and then now I'm starting to think Myers. And it's weird because Myers hasn't played with Provorov all of camp. Unless they do it today, which, it still wasn't training camp because it's practice, but he hasn't played with him. He's played with Friedman, played with Braun, and he played with Gostisbehere. And then in the scrimmage, he played with Braun again. So I don't know. I mean, I personally think it should be Myers because I think they see the confidence in him, and I think the contract kind of lays that out too. They have options of guys that can play on the right side. Gustafsson can play on the right side. Obviously, Braun can also. So, I think they have a lot of options, and kind of just go off what Hunter said with the power play too. Like, they have 5 defensemen that can play on the power play. Provorov, Ghost, Sanheim, Myers, and you could honestly even throw Friedman in there if need be, just in, if he ends up playing or whatever, if there's injury, whatnot. So there's 5 defensemen that can play power play. And again, as you said, they signed Gustafsson, which I think makes sense, obviously with the power play and everything. So, for the most part, my ideal top 6 would probably be Provorov, Myers, Sanheim, and Ghost, and then I would have Hag with Braun, and then you could try to throw Gustafsson in there too at some point, because then again, like, it's so hard because you have so many other guys. I mean, you could even throw Hag. There's a lot of options.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to believe, and I could be totally wrong. And Alain Vigneault pulls a lot of strings, so I'm not saying it's not going to happen ever, but It would be hard for me to think they signed Gustafsson in here and then he's going to be not playing or he's going to be scratching. Right. And maybe his play dictates that. I'm saying, if Ghost plays that well when he gets an opportunity, he can totally steal that spot. It's not like that can't happen. But right from the jump, I would imagine that he's going to at least get that opportunity to either stay in the lineup or lose that spot. You bring him in here for a reason. I think he's probably going to be solidified. But we'll see. Hey, look, AB was scratching JVR for not playing well enough, so anything is on the table.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I want to bring up some comments before we move into our next topic. So this one comes in from Tales of a Failed Life. I love that name. What is the main reason you think the Flyers struggled against the Islanders in the playoffs last season? Just couldn't carry the puck out of their own zone. So I think me, you, and Chris, we discussed this a lot of times before. So Hunter, like, what were your main thoughts on the Flyers last year and their struggles in the playoffs?
Well, they couldn't score, right? I mean, they definitely couldn't score at all. They couldn't find a way to put the puck in the net. And then one of the greatest things about last year, we talked about the depth. It was like their third line could score. Any given night, it was a different line. Raffler scoring 3 goals, or you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Yeah, anyone would score. It was like all season long, you look through that line, or that whole entire depth chart, that lineup chart, guys were getting Obey Kubel, you name it. All these players were producing. And then you saw Barry Trotz in the playoffs. They put together this scheme that suffocates you. You don't get that open ice. It's tighter. You don't have as much space to move the puck. And that really hurt. And then guys like Travis Konechny, who you did rely on more than the other guys, you know, they put pressure on him. They said, this guy's not going to beat us. They made it tough for him to play. And you saw the difference. And then you talk about the veteran guys like Claude Giroux, who I'm a big fan of. You know, he struggled to get going at times. So what you saw in the regular season with all 4 lines rolling, they weren't producing at the same rate. And that you got to give credit to how the Islanders play. It's ugly, boring, system-based. But that's how Barry Trotz has succeeded throughout his whole entire tenure as an NHL coach. So, you know, you got to give credit to the other team. That's what they constantly do. At the same time, the guys you relied on all year long kind of fell into the trap.
Yeah. And here we got another comment right here. This comes from Ammo23, who is my father, currently watching this stream right now.
He's probably at the mall.
I would hope so.
Inside joke here. Inside joke. He doesn't watch the Eagles games. He goes to the mall instead. What a joke. But go ahead.
So his comment is, I've said many times before that the Flyers need a sniper. G and Jake are pure playmakers. The Flyers need a player that other teams will always be watching out for, and this will free up the other people on the roster. I mean, like, yes, Father, you have told me this many times walking home from Flyers games. So I definitely agree with you right there. So Chris and Hunter, I want to get your thoughts on this. So Chris, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't know if they need a pure sniper. I mean, maybe. I mean, I think for the most part, I think they have guys now that can kind of complement that. To be honest, I kind of, maybe you look at a guy like Konechny to turn into a pure sniper. I don't know. I personally don't think they need it. I think they're perfectly fine with the roster they have now. But kind of just to go off what Amadeo was saying before, I personally look at it like this: like, if they were to get a pure sniper, who are you moving? Like if they were to get Line, right? Who are you getting rid of to get Line? Because, and I personally hate the whole Line thing because, like, and it's funny because people would say Sanheim. Yeah, sure. Let's trade another defenseman when we just lost Niskanen, right? And then I personally thought that one of the reasons why they didn't get, the Flyers, kind of, because I think the rumor was that like the Flyers just like, kind of stopped with the trade talks for Line. And I think Winnipeg honestly probably wanted Sanheim and Myers because Winnipeg, they lost, as we talked about before, Amadeo, they lost the 3 right-handed defensemen last year, and Myers, Buffalo, and Trouba. And if they want 2 young defensemen, they're giving up a superstar like that. So I don't think they need a pure sniper. I don't think Line is necessarily like the biggest option either. I know it's been rumored, even still it's rumored that he could go to, like, I think Carolina is still an option today. So it's weird.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree with you with the whole Line thing. I think his name, it's almost as if we are so invested and so like mentally, we need a sniper, that we overreact to Line. Now, I do agree with your father that we do need to get a goal scorer in here. I just don't think it's easy. No one's giving up all of these elite goal scorers. Everyone wants them. Why would people just get rid of these guys? There's a reason why they're on the teams that they are. Look, Line can score the puck, and he had 1 year of 40-plus goals, and then the other year is 28, 30. So it's not as if he can't score. He can. I just think we naturally react to Laine's name and put more on him. I think if he was here, you'd probably be frustrated with his play more than you would be super stoked about it, because he does have a lot of frustrating traits to his game. And then talk about the salary cap as well. One of the reasons why he's not in Winnipeg is because of that. So, well, he's there, but why there are even trade talks is because of the financial pieces surrounding it. Would I be mad? No, I wouldn't. And I do think, while I wouldn't want to give up someone like Sanheim, I think you are stacked defensively with prospects. We talked about Cam York, captain of the U.S. team. Like, you do have things up and coming where if you did lose a Sanheim, it's that hard to get snipers in this league that I think you have enough that you can make up for it eventually in a smaller window. But would I be screaming for it? No, I don't think I would be screaming for it. But that doesn't mean they don't need a sniper, because I do think they need someone who can legitimately put the puck in the net more than they do.
Yeah, just go on that topic of frustrating with Patrick Laine. Didn't he have that one stretch a year or two ago where he scored 15 goals in the month of November? Then he went on a stretch of consecutive months where he only scored maybe 1 or 2 goals.
I think he had 2 goals for December and January, something like that.
Yeah, that's something that would definitely frustrate Flyers fans. So that's definitely something to talk about right there. We also got one more comment from Mr. Tryhard saying, "Tell Broads I said what's up." So he says, "What's up to you, Broads?"
What's up?
So the one topic that I want to get into, because we do have to close the live stream a little bit earlier today just due to time constraints. So the one thing I want to get into is divisional predictions right now. So the Flyers, they're in the Eastern Division. That's the one I want to go into more depth. We could talk about the other divisions, maybe just go really quick by them, what we think, how we feel. So let's start with the Eastern Division right now, the Flyers division. You got Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Penguins, and the Capitals. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, what are your predictions with this division, because this is probably going to be the toughest division in the NHL this season. So Hunter, I want to get your predictions for this division, and what do you think the Flyers' chances are here?
Well, the Flyers this is the way, it's so hard to predict this because I think everyone is in that same range outside of the Devils. And I don't think the Devils are going to be as bad as they were last year. I think they're actually going to take a step in the right direction, but they still are a couple steps behind some of the other squads. So it's like one of those things where honestly anyone can do it. It's so hard to predict this thing because I think everyone's in play. Now the Bruins lost some defensemen, but guess what? It's the Boston Bruins, and I don't think they're going to fall off an insane cliff. I still think they're going to be very competitive. If you have that line, that top line's going to keep you engaged all over the place. Chara was losing a step. The guy's 73 years old. So while it's a big locker room loss, they probably gained when it came to production on the ice. And I'm not saying that Chara didn't do anything last year. He logs a ton of minutes, but come on, this is a fast game now. These guys are 20 years old skating around the ice. This guy was hanging on by a thread. Let's be realistic. If I was going to guess, I'll probably go with if I'm really going to put the Flyers up there like that. The Capitals lose Holtby. There's a lot involved here. Just for the sake of the Flyered Up podcast, I'll go Flyers at the top. I'll go Islanders in the mix. And I'll go Rangers up there as well. Those would be my top 3. How about that?
Ooh, I like it.
How about that?
I like it.
There's my top 3. But it's going to be super competitive. It's a free-for-all. I'm curious to see how the Sabres do. Every year they start out hot, then they collapse. I'm rooting for Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
Chris, what
kind of just to go off of it, my order is this. I have Flyers at 1, Boston at 2, Islanders at 3, and Washington at 4. I think Pittsburgh takes a little bit of a step back. The Caps, they're still there. They have their veterans. It's the goaltending that's a little bit of a question for me. Can Samsonov, do that? And obviously they lost Lundqvist. I think the Islanders are still the Islanders. They're still a very good team. And like I said, Boston is still Boston. Buffalo is unknown. I know, Hunter, you brought that up. They have Hall. They added Eric Stahl also. They have that top 6. Their bottom 6 looks a little weak, and the goaltending is a little iffy. So I'm not too sure. As you said, the last few years they've kind of, they've had really good starts. They were first in the Atlantic and then completely plummeted. I think finished in 7th. So I think it's tough. I agree. I think the only team that's not going to fight is New Jersey. And obviously they lost Crawford too, so it's even more of a losing cause for them. So I think for the most part, I personally think the Flyers are going to win the division. I don't see any reason why they won't. I think they're the best. I think they're one of the best teams here. In my books, I would argue them 1 or 2. and with anybody. So I think for the most part, I have them winning. Obviously the bias is showing a little bit, but again, I think the Flyers are going to top this the new I guess you can call it the Mass Mutual division or whatever the hell they're calling it this year.
Yeah, I do think I picked the Flyers. It's tough. It's really hard to predict because I think everyone's in play here. I do think the Flyers are still missing something though. If I look at this roster from top to bottom, they're a good team. They're going to be fun to watch. And look, in the NHL, a goaltender can steal you playoff rounds, and who knows what Carter Hart can grow into. So I'm not acting as if it's impossible by any means, but I still do think they're just shy of being a legitimate, insane, pure Stanley Cup contender. That's just my thoughts on it. But they're still a good team, fun to watch, and trending in the right direction for sure. But a hot goaltender can literally steal you Stanley Cup, so I'm not rolling it out.
Yeah, I'm going to knock on wood right here. So I'm going to put, for my division, Flyers 1, like the both of you guys. I'm going to put the Islanders at 2. I'm going to put the Capitals at 3. I'm going to put Boston at 4. I feel like they're going to have a little bit of a slow start to the season just because of what's going on with Marchand and Pasternak. So they both had major surgeries this offseason. I think Marchand is expected to start the season earlier than expected in January, but Pasternak, I think, is still expected in February.
So no one's going Rangers. I'm the only one here, huh? Oh, young season. They got the goaltender thing.
They're way too
Hey, they were making a push. Panarin. Tony DeAngelo, my boy. He's a nut job, but he's my boy.
Yeah, I think the Rangers are still too young. That's where I put them in 5th place right there, right behind Boston.
I have them 5th and 6th, fighting there with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's not like they're totally out of it. This division is going to be competition throughout the entire year. And you got Flyers in Boston and the outdoor game at Lake Tahoe. That's going to be very fun and exciting right there.
Great.
Yeah, I thought the Rangers made such a good push at the end of last season that they build off of that. They are young for sure, but you talk about the sprint, it's not like the 82-game season. We talk about Buffalo starting out. If you start out hot, that could be just enough to kind of get you involved if you start the season off right. So, we'll see with the Rangers. You're right, though. They definitely do have some holes, but I'm going with them, going out on a limb. I'm not going status quo here with all those other squads. But the Penguins, I'm going to be devastated to not see my guys. This is a hot take for a Flyered Up podcast. I'm going to be devastated not seeing my guy Sidney Crosby just work the whole entire league and go win another cup. I love rooting for that guy to win.
That's why I still have them fighting there because they have Crosby and Malkin.
I openly root for Sidney Crosby to win as many cups as possible. He's my favorite athlete ever. One of my top 3s. LeBron James, Serena Williams, Sidney Crosby. Hot take on the Fired Up podcast. I root for him to see
controversy right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get ripped all the time. I'm called a fraud, a joke. Watch the guy play. He's elite. He's the best. It's so special. It's amazing.
I've said it many times, Tom Deo, that when he doesn't play the Flyers, the only time I hate him is when he plays the Flyers. I will legitimately sit there and all watch him looking at
amazing.
The TV. He's insane.
Yeah. It's the little things. It's the things that most people just casually watching hockey. It's this tight turns in the corners. Here I am oh, did you see that tight turn and pivot? Who looks at that? No one. But that's what's amazing about his play. But anyway, I digress.
Yes. And we're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. The one division that I feel like that is more exciting to you guys. So I feel like right now it's the Canadian division or the North division or whatever brand division it's called right now. It's going to be really exciting seeing the Battle of Alberta 10 times a year. Ooh, Johnny Gaudreau, Edmonton Oilers, the battle, the line brawls. I want to get your thoughts on this. What other division do you think is going to be the most exciting? And I feel like you're all going to say the Canadian division. So, Hunter, I want to start with you right there.
Yeah, of course, the North division is going to be insane. These Canadian markets are absurd. I've actually been I love listening to Toronto sports radio. I'm not going to lie. I just dive into Toronto sports radio. I listen. It's crazy how we view the Eagles here, where we talk about who's a healthy scratch.
The Leafs.
Oh, my God. They're talking about, Austin Matthews on the PK for 4 hours. A 4-hour show about Austin Matthews playing the PK. Imagine this city calling sports talk radio, and for 4 hours they're talking about Raffle on PK2. It's unbelievable. I love it. So I just think the intensity of the hockey market is why that is the big one. The Western, it'll be okay, and the Central, I don't know. The Lightning and
the Central's all Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the Lightning, and then you got Carolina maybe, and Nashville, but
Columbus,
they're still a step behind there. It's got to be the North.
Come on, Columbus with Eric Robinson, man, your guy. That's
yeah,
your
you're
guy.
right. My fourth line grind guy. But well, Pierre-Luc Dubois and that whole debacle. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, it's got to be the Canadian division.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts there? What do you think is the other best division besides the East?
I obviously I think that I personally think the Canadian division too, but to be honest, I'm kind of curious to see how that like the Central Division works out with like Vegas and Colorado and all them teams, just to see who finishes in the top 4 there, because that's it's kind of off once you hit the California teams, but some of them you're still fighting to the end there. Minnesota could be that 4 spot, which I think would be kind of cool. But honestly, yeah, I personally think that that Canadian division is going to be one of the best ones. I think there's going to be a lot of competition throughout. And as you said, the Battle of Alberta, I think all the rivalries that you're going to see for the most part too, that are just kind of like continue like throughout the season also.
That rivalry is better than Flyers Penguins, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. In recent years, I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, when there's literally goalie fights, I would 100% agree.
Yeah, it's insane. It's so sick.
Then one last shot right here from my father talking about Carson Wentz not going to Acme. Yeah, my dad hates the Eagles. So that's basically summarizing it. Maybe we'll get into another discussion about that in a later time. But I think right here we have to end it just due to time constraints. So, Hunter, thank you for joining us right here. So is there anything you want to drop here? Any other things that people should go follow that are watching this live stream currently?
Just a good old Sports Talk with Broads YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Broads81. We're going to implement some giveaways here as the Sixers started off, but with the Flyers starting tomorrow. Wow, I can't believe I said that. 5:30, a little bit of a weird start time, but yeah, those 2 platforms. And thanks for having me, guys. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. You're always invited on the show whenever you're able to join. And remember, everyone, Flyers tomorrow, 5:30, Pittsburgh Penguins at the Wells Fargo Center season opener. It's going to be a great time here at the Painted Lines. I think we are live streaming the game tomorrow. Definitely going to work out those tweaks and stuff like that. But for everyone here, thanks you for joining the live stream. It's always going to be up on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast if you weren't able to tune into the live stream today. So thank you, Hunter, once again for joining us. Don't forget to check out all the Painted Lines stuff, live streaming Sixers games, all of the other podcasts. Don't forget to check out Flyers Fan Mania 93, TTP Sports YouTube channels. Always great stuff right there. So thank you for tuning into this episode of the Flyered Up Podcast. Get pumped up for the Flyers tomorrow, and we will see you guys another time.